What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Broadened Horizon. I am your host, Drake Riggs, here with episode 9, and we've got 4 great guests for you. Joining us first is Shoma Shibisai, who recently defeated Tsuyoshi Sudario at RIZIN 28 in the Tokyo Dome. After Shibisai, RIZIN photographer Sachiko Hotaka stopped by to talk about the art within the art of combat sports. And following Hotaka is the always entertaining Ulka Sasaki, who has some ideas on who and when he'd like to fight next. And last but not least is one of the true pioneers of the sport, the reigning strawweight queen of Pancrase, the kamikaze angel, Emi Fujino. Thank you to all of them for joining us and to those who submitted questions for the end of the show. And as always, you guys, wherever you're watching or listening, all versions of Broadened Horizon can be found on mymmanews.com, those versions being video, audio, and Japanese audio. All right, let's get on with it. One more until the big number 10. Enjoy. And to kick things off, we are joined by Shoma Shibisai. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Shoma. Great to get to talk to you, man. So, just how are you doing today? Genki desu ka?
はい。元気です。大丈夫です。はい。
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Happy to hear it. And congratulations on the big win at RIZIN 28, of course. Did you do anything fancy to celebrate or, just chilling out afterwards and taking it easy?
祝勝会などは何も行ってませんね、今。
I have done no particular celebrating as of now.
All right, maybe save it for down the road or whenever. But as for that RIZIN 28 experience and, fighting in the Tokyo Dome, what was that like for you? Obviously, a very, very special and unique thing for any fighter to be a part of. But what was it like for you?
そうですね。やっぱり
Yeah, so for me as a professional fighter, being able to compete at the Tokyo Dome is was definitely my highlight of my career so far. It's definitely it was a place where I was able to shine the most.
今のところ輝けた瞬間だったのかなっていうふうには思ってます。
Yeah, and did kind of that spectacle add any pressure at all for you going into it, or did you just try and remain as focused as you could?
そうですね。やっぱり
Well, as I was heading into the venue, I mean, just walking into the venue, walking around inside the venue, checking the place out, it was just big. It was a lot different than the other venues that I fought in. So that itself just kind of it made me feel a little nervous. But I was able to flip the switch on just focusing and enjoying the fight during my walkout. That's when I was able to flip the switch and just focus on my fight.
Definitely. And you went out there, did your thing, looked great. And I mean, as for the fight with Sudario itself, did that play out pretty much as you expected it to, or did he surprise you with anything? Just was that how you expected the fight to go?
そうですね。
See, the original plan heading into this fight was I was ready to fight full 15 minutes, and I was set to go that far. And obviously, if I had the opportunity to finish, I would have wanted it to be in my style, the way I like to finish fights. So when I look back, yes, I kind of just putting these things together right now while looking back. In a way, yes, it went as planned because I was ready to go for long rounds, and I finished the fight in a way I like to finish.
Absolutely. And I mean, does it make this win any more satisfying, knowing that, all right, I was the first person to hand this guy his first loss? Does that add anything to it for you?
そういった感情は
So for me, I didn't feel any special feeling towards handing a first loss to an undefeated fighter. But for me, I know that he was asking for MMA fighters. He was asking for quality opponents, and I'm just honored that he accepted to fight me, and I was chosen. I was and overall, I was grateful that he looked at me as a worthy opponent.
彼の中で認めてもらえたっていうか、そういう気持ちはありましたね。はい。
Yeah, you kind of mentioned it right there. Like, did it make it more difficult at all to prepare for somebody like him who, of course, he has his, fantastic sumo background, but in terms of MMA, he didn't have very much in-ring time. Like your fight with him was longer than his whole career combined. So did that make it difficult at all to prepare for him?
はい。そうですね。おっしゃる通り、
Yeah, so as you have mentioned, Sudario was definitely he was hard to study. There's no footage of him actually, fighting a fight. So it was very hard to prepare for Sudario, but I'm more of a guy who tries to raise my skill sets rather than focus on my opponent. So, for this one too, I worked on making myself a better fighter so that I can fight anybody. And I think that just worked out for this one.
I mean, yeah, you got the right result that you would want. And I feel like that's just something a lot of people have started to do in this day and age in MMA, right? Where, you can only control yourself. So might as well make you the best you can be and maybe not worry as much about the opponents. Is that fair to say?
そうですね。まあ、やっぱりその、
Yeah, so it's not rare that your opponent changes last minute, and I think it's very important to be able to fight anybody at any time. And that's the kind of motivation I need to prepare for any fight and put myself in the gym every day.
Definitely. And it's interesting, Shoma, before the fight, I saw that you said in an interview that you think that this fight would prove the best heavyweight in Japan. So I'm curious, having gone through it now, getting your hand raised, do you think that you proved, that you're the best heavyweight in Japan?
いえ、まあそこに関してはですね、
I mean, the answer would be no,
まだまだ、
because
まあ
there are still a few Japanese heavyweights who are said to be
強
very
く言われて
good.
る人います
And
ね、何人か。
for me, I
ま
would really like
あ
to
そういった
fight
人
them.
たちとも試合を
That
していかないといけない。
without doing so, I don't think I deserve to say anything.
And I mean, with that in mind, is it kind of hard to be, a heavyweight in Japan? Because, you mentioned a few people right there, but it's really there's not a lot of heavyweights or heavier fighters in Japan. So has it been kind of hard for you to maybe find, topper quality opponents or anything like that in your career?
まあそうですね。まあ
Yes, I think one of the reasons of being a Japanese heavyweight is that it's just hard to
まあどうしても
have the right training environment
選手と練習
in terms of sparring partners. I mean, there's not many people
みんな
my size who we can spar with.
まあ自分はアメリカ
So
に行ったりして思ったんですけど、
just from my experience going to the States and training in the US, it's just normal that there are guys my size, like regularly. They're in the gym. You won't have to struggle with finding training partners. But in Japan, it's just how how the Japanese, the size, it's just so hard to just even find a sparring partner my size. And with that being said, the lack of fighters and participants in the Japanese heavyweight division, it also leads to the lack of fights, the lack of quality fights, fighting the same guys over and over. So yeah, it's difficult. It's a difficult situation over here in Japan.
So ideally, when you look at what's next, I mean, you're on a great run now, good winning streak going on. Are you hoping to maybe get with an American promotion or somewhere overseas if you can? I mean, you've already had a fight with Bellator, and that was a part of the RIZIN cross promotion and everything. But what are you looking at next then, if anything, at the moment?
そうですね。やっぱり、まあ、自分のキャリア、
Ultimately, I've been
まあ、10年
involved in this sport for about 10 years now,
ちょっと
and I do
今
think
が
that
スタートラインに立てたのかなっていう
it's time to take my competition to the next level. But
まあ自分も
I
結構
think
インタビューでも言ってるんですけ
for
ど、
me,
あんまりその
I don't really want to
ヘビー
fight
級同
like
士で
fight
って
to
いうより
determine the
も
best
まあ
Japanese
自分はまあなんか
heavyweight.
日本のヘビー級だった
I
ら世
want
界
to think
一
outwards.
イメー
And
ジ
I
がす
think
ご
that's
く
what the fans want to see too. The
まあ
fans
そ
want
れ
to see a Japanese
で
heavyweight taking on
まあ自分
international
自身も
competition
やっぱ
and
り世
beating
界
them.
と選手とやっていきたい
And I
他
think
のその
that explains it all.
の人と
So
かもやっぱり見たいのは
I would
まあ
definitely
日本人のヘ
prefer
ビ
to
ー級
fight
最強
international
同士の
competition
戦い
than rather to
日本人のヘ
determine
ビー級
who's
同
the
士の戦い
best
っ
in
ていうの
Japan. So I think that's where my motivation and mind will be set. Wherever I fight, just fighting international competition is something that I would want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully you get that opportunity, still plenty of time to do so. But, I mentioned the Bellator experience that you got to be a part of there. And that was in collaboration with RIZIN, of course. So just what has it been like for you to be a part of RIZIN and get to do kind of some of these cooler things like, fighting in Bellator's Japan show and, against some international competition while in Japan? Just what's the whole experience been like for you in RIZIN? Have you enjoyed your time?
So yeah, obviously, right, RIZIN is without a doubt the biggest promotion in Japan, and being able to fight on such a platform it's definitely an honor and it's a privilege. Obviously, with their help, I was able to get some experience inside the cage, and that was definitely an experience. And overall, RIZIN just made their rule changes to elbows are allowed to all fights, and that itself just made RIZIN is definitely making things very interesting, and it's very fun to be a part of.
Yeah, and very fun to watch, man. You gotta love all the elbows now. That's such a really fun weapon to get to utilize to its fullest potential. But I want to go back a little bit too, Shoma, kind of to the earlier days for you. You kind of mentioned there 10 years now about. I noticed that you had a 3-year gap, after 2012 to 2015 before returning. Just kind of curious, was there a reason for the break specifically, or just kind of happened that way?
はい。なんですが、正直言うと何も知らない。そうですね。はい。
He said that this is my first time saying this, but the 3 years I wasn't doing anything. There was no particular reason. I was just away for 3 years.
All right. I mean, hey, is what it is. Gotta do what you want to do. So I was just curious about that, of course. But when you got into MMA, Shoma, did you have any inspirations or anybody you kind of looked up to and wanted to maybe mold your career after when you got into things?
そうです。ヒョードル選手が好きだったので、2019年に同じリングで試合できたっていうことが本当に嬉しかったです。
Yeah, so for me, growing up watching Pride, Fedor was definitely my favorite fighter, and he was definitely an inspiration. So for me, being able to fight in the same cage, same platform, and back in 2019 was something that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, can imagine. Hard not to be a big fan of Fedor, and a very cool moment, for you to get to do that indeed. So, there's just so many great legends in the heavyweight division, very, very rich history, right? So, I mean, if you had to pick a dream opponent, Shoma, is there anybody that comes to mind? Would you be able to fight a Fedor, or is that too close to home? Like, who would be your dream opponent if you could pick anybody throughout the heavyweight history of MMA?
やっぱりヒョードル選手ですかね。ヒョードル選手しか思い浮かばないです。はい。
Yeah, so it would definitely be Fedor. That's the only person I can think of.
Well, hey, you never know what can happen. Sure, he's getting towards the end of his career, but we'll see, right? Maybe you could make that happen. But all right, Shoma, won't leave you too much longer here, but just want to finish up with some outside MMA stuff. You said you took that gap of time just to do a little bit of nothing, but curious outside of MMA, like any hobbies or specific activities that you like to do when you're not training or anything like that?
Yeah, he's having a hard time thinking of coming up with a hobby, and he said well, maybe watching DVDs. Yeah, that's the best thing I can think of.
Yeah, of course. Everybody likes to sit down and enjoy a good movie every now and then, but we can leave it off there, Shoma. Appreciate you taking the time very much, man. Congrats again on the victory. Very impressive stuff, and a fun heavyweight to watch and on a good roll right now. So wish you all the best going forward, and maybe you can get that Fedor fight one day. We'll see what happens, but either way, wishing you all the best of luck. And I appreciate the time so much. Big arigato gozaimashita for taking the time.
こちらこそ本当にありがとうございました。
Yeah, it says thank you very much for your time.
Next is RIZIN photographer Sachiko Hotaka. All right. Well, it means a lot for you to take the time here, Sachiko. Excited to get to talk to you. Just first of all, how are you doing today? O genki desu ka?
元気です。ありがとう。
Right. So, coming off the heels of RIZIN 28, just what do you think of the event? Do you get to enjoy these shows? I mean, the atmospheres and all that. Or are you just so focused on what are you doing? What was it like in there for you in the Tokyo Dome?
プライドの時は私は
Yeah, so I was not part of the Pride staff, when MMA was last held at the Tokyo Dome, but people who were, I could tell that they all had this special feeling after 18 years, returning to the Tokyo Dome for MMA after 18 years. I can just tell that. So heading into this event, I myself was pretty nervous. Working at the Tokyo Dome, it's such a prestigious setup, the venue. As I entered the arena, watching the entire setup, just walking through the back, just trying to figure out the locations and maps of the venue. It was definitely there was definitely this special feeling that I felt. Can't really describe it, but there was definitely a special emotion that I felt when I got there. And I also think that the story itself, the Tokyo Dome and MMA, it tells a great story, and I think it kind of completes the circle, or it just connects the two dots of the history of Japanese MMA. And I think a lot of people who don't know about Pride, who just know RIZIN, or a lot of MMA fans who don't know anything about Pride, they were able to learn the rich history of Japanese MMA through this event, through the Tokyo Dome event. Like so much story. Let's just say when you focus on the Soda brothers and Kleber, what they did, they were just because of attending that fight, watching that fight, they were automatically introduced to the history of Japanese MMA at the Tokyo Dome. So I felt that this event was a very it has lots of potential for RIZIN's growth, and I think this event definitely is the beginning of gaining the momentum of RIZIN.
Yeah, can't really disagree with you there. It was a special thing, undeniably, just to see it, just to see the Tokyo Dome and the ring inside there was very cool. And you mentioned, Satoshi and Kleber. I mean, I'm assuming kind of a fan of Satoshi as you had the background up there. What did you just make of their performances? Because wow, they are just so incredible, with the technique that they possess and the wins that they got. What did you think about them? Their story is amazing.
実際のところはわからないけども、やっぱりその
So I'm not a fight expert, so I don't know like the details, but just in terms of their fight, just feeling what they had to show, they came in here to this fight with great purpose and a big meaning, I think. And it felt like they were determined to finish this fight with submission. I mean, all fighters are definitely determined to finish the fight, but in particular, these two fighters, Satoshi and Kleber, I do feel that they came into this fight with like extra determination.
Yeah, I think we could definitely see that, and they've just been so motivated to do their thing and get the titles, which Satoshi got his and Kleber's on his way as well. But you mentioned maybe not being an expert in the techniques and everything, but I know what you are an expert in is wrestling, right? That's kind of where you started and doing photography. So a bit loaded backstory, I'm sure. But how did you get into photography in the first place, and how did it lead to wrestling?
もともと高校生の時に
Okay, so I used to do I used to be a part of the track and field club from junior high and high school. And there was an incident where I didn't get along with the coach in high school, so I had to quit. But I guess the school policy was that I had to do some after hours club activities. And so when I quit track and field, I wanted to choose something that I was going to continue with. And I thought about it and I realized that I did enjoy taking pictures. So I joined the photography club. And as I was doing my activities in the club, I would take pictures, and I really enjoyed taking sports festivities during the time. And throughout that experience, I have become to think that I would want to major in photography when I go to university. So that's what I did. And at the time, the Olympics were going on, and there was a special appeal for wrestling. I didn't know the rules at all, but I would watch wrestling and I thought it was cool. And I knew that wrestling was something that I would want to take photos of once I advanced to the university. So I entered my university, and I came to Tokyo, and I started to think about on how to get involved with shooting wrestling. So back then, the internet wasn't popular as it is right now. So I called up the wrestling committee and asked them if they could introduce me to any team or anything where I can shoot wrestling. And they came back and introduced me to a specific university, and that's how I got my foot in the door with wrestling. And by the time I graduated, there were definitely a lot of options for me to become an exclusive photographer for certain corporations or certain companies. But at the time, by then, I was just way too deep into the wrestling world. And if I were to become exclusive with a company or any kind of corporation, it would limit myself from taking wrestling photos. So I kind of had no option. If I wanted to continue to shoot wrestling, I had to become a free photographer. So after graduating college, I immediately became a free photographer. And obviously back then I had to work part-time jobs. Yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Okay, very, very interesting kind of, I think a lot of people don't realize the maybe struggle a little bit that photographers have to go through to get to where they want to be or shoot what they want to shoot, like in your case. So it's very fascinating to me. And did you have any favorite wrestlers?
At that time?
Yes.
Japanese ones, so you never know.
Fair enough. So this is something too that I think in terms of, is there a difference you would say between having a favorite wrestler and then maybe wrestlers that are your favorite wrestlers to shoot and to take pictures of? Is there a difference, or are those the same person?
好きなレスラーを撮りたいですね。難しいな。
Yeah, so I've always found it very appealing. Wrestlers very appealing to shoot. So ultimately, it's a very difficult question to begin with. But when you're shooting appealing fighters, it becomes your favorite fighter. You shoot this specific fighter because you want to shoot this specific wrestler. So I'm sorry. Don't let me get this. So she shoots appealing wrestlers because she thinks they're appealing.
All right. I mean, it makes sense. Makes sense. I was just curious if there was maybe, a differential there because, everybody works in different ways. But did you know much about MMA before, joining RIZIN and shooting RIZIN events, Sachiko?
So when I started getting involved shooting wrestling, I didn't know anything about MMA. but I believe that I started getting involved with MMA around 2003 or 2004. I did Heroes. I did shoot for Heroes, and I was the official photographer for Dream. So yes, I did know about MMA before Ryzen.
Okay, all right. So in that case, is it feel different to shoot MMA events compared to, wrestling? And just what has it been like working with Ryzen now? It seems like you're always having a fun time when we see you and all the athletes together. Looks like a good time.
楽しそうにやってる。
So the big difference is wrestling is an amateur sport, and when there's a tournament, there's competition, they do a tournament throughout several days. So let's say one competition would consist of like 400 matches, and when it comes to like world championships, they do it for 9 days. So it's hard for me to focus on all matches and all contestants. But for Ryzen, they only have 10 to 15 fights per event, and I'm able to focus on each fighter in that sense. And additionally, when we do the media days, when I do the still photo shoots with each and every fighter, probably a couple days before the fight, I get to interact with them a little bit. I get to know them, and I feel grateful to be able to be working with such athletes and given this opportunity to kind of get to know them in a way. Additionally, the difference between wrestling and MMA is that MMA is a professional sport, and there's much higher risk, and it's a much dangerous sport compared to amateur competition. So when I work with wrestling, I kind of shoot and enjoy. I enjoy myself as I'm working. But MMA, it's everything is so intense. The atmosphere is intense, and I have to be more serious and more into not missing a single moment of where the fighters are putting their lives on the line inside the ring. So I have to focus not to miss a single second. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful to be able to work with such talented athletes who dedicate their life to the sport.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's a very cool, spot to be in. And with all that in mind, Sachiko, I remember hearing one time Esther Lynn said that I think she said she takes about 1,000 pictures per event. I believe that I could be off by a little bit, but for you, tip on average, how many pictures would you say that you take per event?
枚くらいかな。すべてのイベントで、すべての一大会でですよね。7000枚くらいですね。
Yeah, take about an average of 7,000 pictures a day per event.
Jesus Christ. I didn't expect that big of a number, but that is a lot. Is it difficult to kind of narrow that down?
そうですね。すごく大変ですね。本当にで
So yeah, I mean it is hard to sort things out. I mean, as far as the pictures that go to the live event photos that that the media have access to, those pictures are sorted out by Ryzen staff, and they have to be quick about it. And it's they have to be quick to do that. But as far as the pictures that I post on social media platforms, I go through every single one, so it is a lot of work, and it's but it's fun. The process is fun because there are certain moments and certain shots I know that's gonna come out well, and as I'm going through the pictures, I can kind of anticipate when it's coming. So that process is pretty. I enjoy that process a lot.
That would be very cool, and still I can't get over that. That's a lot, but it's just one of those things, right? Where I think people don't quite think about, how much you guys do. It's more than just snapping the picture. But speaking of the moments, like, are there any? Let's go RIZIN in particular, and your time shooting RIZIN, a most memorable moment, or maybe a couple that stand out to you. Tough one, I know.
この質問は来ると思ってたんですけど。
Yeah, she's anticipated this one.
堀口教授選手のベルト奪還の時ですかね。
Yeah, probably when Horiguchi got back the belt.
いっぱいあるんですよね。
There are so many of them. I know that during these interviews and questions like this, you want me to narrow it down to one particular moment. So it's really hard. But if I had to say right now, it'd be the Horiguchi moment when he got his belt back.
Hey, totally fine. I'll take it. I want whatever answer you feel comfortable giving. So definitely a great moment. So some good shots from that one. Definitely remember those. A tough one, I know. I had to ask. I got to throw it at you. So I'll follow it up, though, with another tough one, Sachiko. And maybe you can't even answer this one because I'm curious to know, what would you say is the secret to being a great photographer?
I'm not. Okay. 愛と情熱ですね。
Love and passion.
All right, there you go. Perfect. It's different for everybody. Just see if I could get the secrets out of you, but I think that's a good answer.
もう一つ、体力。愛と情熱と体力。
You need love, passion, and vitality, or stamina in a way.
Right. And kind of speaking off of the stamina, I mean, I think you're kind of recognized for the outfits that you wear, your photography outfit, which, makes you stand out a little bit. Is there a story behind, the outfit you put on, or is it just, I don't know. Yeah. Is there any story there, or is this how it comes together? Yeah, there we go.
Hey, I took this photo.
There we go.
So my position is I'm the official photographer, and my job is to deliver the event photos in a timely manner to all the press. So I can't afford to miss a single moment of what's going on, which means that I have to be there when things are happening. I have to be at the right place in the right time, which means that mobility is the key. And I need to be able to move quick, be there quick and ready at all times, which ultimately comes down to my outfit. I need to be able to be dressed in a way where I can be mobile and agile. So it all comes down to that outfit and 3 different cameras with different lenses. And just after all the experience, it just came down to this outfit works best for me.
All right, there it is. So the story behind the iconic outfit, it works for you, obviously, and we can see you down by the cage moving around a lot, or by the ring, excuse me. So yeah, that's very cool. All right, Sachiko, I'll leave you with one last thing here just before we get going. Thanks so much for the time. Great getting to chat with you. But outside of photography and things like that, snapping pictures of athletes, do you have any other hobbies that you're really interested in, or is it just mostly, capturing these moments in time for us to remember forever?
私、今年タップダンスを始めました。
I started learning tap dancing this year.
Okay. Very cool. What inspired that?
ああ、結構昔から興味があって。
So I've always been into musicals. I like music. I watch musicals and stuff, and
昔から興味があって
I've always had some general interest
で結構ミュージカ
in
ル
stuff
とか
like
も
that.
見るの好きで、
And after watching some content called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend on Netflix,
ネットフリックスで
it just kind of rebrought my desire to learn tap dancing. And for me, sooner the better. So I looked up a place where I can learn
で
nearby, and here I
始
am.
めるのは
All right, very awesome. Good to branch out a little bit, and who knows, maybe maybe we can get into photography of some tap dancing at some point. Really expand the playbook, right?
すごいタップダンスすごい足の筋肉を結構バランスを取ったり片足立ちしたりするからすごいライジンの写真撮るのにも役に立つなって今思ってますけど。
I think tap dancing, it works a lot of on your leg muscles, and various parts of your muscles you can work on. So I think ultimately this will work for my RIZIN photo shoots.
Yeah, a good workout indeed. Keep you nice and mobile, right, as you're going around the arenas. So perfect. But all right, I'll leave it off there, Sachiko. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really fun getting to chat with you, kind of pick your brain about the photography side of things, which is a lot more work, I think, than people realize, and maybe they'll know that now after hearing from you. But appreciate it greatly. Look forward to seeing the rest of the memories you capture for us to look at. Always great work, and wishing you all the best. Thank you so much. Arigato gozaimashita for taking the time, and yeah, good luck with everything.
ありがとうございます。
Moving on, it's Ulka Sasaki.
Hi, Drake. Nice to meet
Hey,
you.
yes, nice to meet you. Yeah, I mean, how are things though, Ulka? How are you doing today?
今日そうですね、動いたけど、
Well, you know how he broke his hand, so he said is that I have been training, but it's still far from being in fight shape.
Okay, that's no good. When did that happen? Pretty recently?
了解です。スパ中に、
This happened about 2 months ago during the sparring when I threw the overhand right hook. I don't know, it hit in the bad part, in the hard part of the body, or it was just because of a strong punch. But what happened was on the base of my fist was shattered. So basically, the doctor said it will take about 3 months to be fully recovered. 2 weeks ago, I went to see a doctor. He said the outside part is already all healed up, but in the inside, still there's a crack.
まあでも、完璧に骨くっつくのは3ヶ月って言われてるんで。
Okay, so getting close to fully recovered, which is good, but that sounds, pretty painful and all that. Did it require surgery, or were you able to avoid that?
固定をして治療してたんですけど、
Actually, I didn't have to do a surgery, but it was broken. And it was actually rather clearly broken. So I didn't have to. All I did was put a cast on and stay there. So right now, I took a cast off a couple of weeks ago. Now I'm back into the training, but not the full manner.
All right. Well, that's good, and always good to be able to avoid surgery if you can as well. So aside from that, though, how has 2021 been for you? Haven't had a fight yet this year. Looking forward to seeing you back, of course. But aside from the handbrake, how has the year been treating you so far?
試合したいです。試合したいです。
All I want to say is I want to get a fight, and I want to fight. So, and I'm hearing that there is a RIZIN during the show in September, and that it was plenty enough for me to do a full fight camp. So, therefore, I would like to fight in September.
Yeah, that is definitely plenty of time, and hopefully you can land on there. But I want to ask about the singing a little bit because you did drop the video. So, are you looking to branch out a little bit and do some other things on the side? I mean, obviously, seems like some fun things to do, right?
ファイト以外、まあメインとなるのはやっぱアパレル。
Well, other than fighting career, I actually my main focus is apparel. I run apparel called Lazy God, which is I found this apparel. And in terms of my YouTube channel, I already gave this production company to do all the work, and one of their planning was that music video. So I was just gonna try different stuff. So it's just only one of those. So
nothing too major, so don't touch too much about it.
You say that now, right? You say that now until more opportunities come up. As for Lazy God, though, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to ask, how has it been running that? Because you started it last year, right? So having had a full year of working on that kind of stuff, how has it been with all the time now?
すごい伸びてると言ったら
To simply summarize, the brand Lazy Goat is doing very well. It's very increasing steadily in terms of sales. That's because I have been doing many pop-up stores all over the places. And during the COVID, things are not easy to put up an event. So, but I still communicate with many of my followers through Lazy Goat accounts and stuff like that on social network. And on top of that, I'm doing many collaboration with other brands, and many things already being confirmed. So I'm very busy, and more upcoming announcements soon in regards to that. So basically, it's doing very well.
Yeah, very cool to hear and happy for you. Congratulations on all that success. Is it also nice to kind of have something to keep you busy aside from MMA? Because a lot of people, they get wrapped up in it and sucked in, which is fair. It's a very a sport that needs a lot of focus, but is it nice to get distracted a little bit and do stuff like this?
めちゃくちゃプラスになってると思いますね。
Well, Lazy God has been a plus for me because it's totally a different feel. So I get to see different stuff, But I'm always valuing on the fact that I have to be careful about making sure I can make that switch I need as a fighter. Because when I get into the fighting mode, you have to keep that mode of beating somebody, killing opponents kind of in a sense of feeling. And that kind of sense is very important when I begin a fight camp or even I enter the fight week. That is very important. That's the switching mode that I need to, be very cautious about.
Of course, and just speaking of switching into that fight mode, your last fight with Kenta on New Year's Eve got the win there in the return. And I remember hearing you talking about the fight before the fight in an interview and, saying how, all right, I might come back, as a striker this time. And you mixed it up very well in that fight, did a little bit of everything and got the job done, of course. But just what did you make of the performance? Were you happy with it?
いや、全然じゃないですか。まだまだ。
Good. Well, in regards to that fight against Takizawa, I would have to say that fight is not good at all. I should have either submit him or knock him out. I didn't perform that level, so I'm not thinking good about that fight. However, I felt that I still have a big room to improve. Because I've changed my body. I worked on strength and conditioning, obviously, and because of that, I got the big punching power right now. And this is the first time in my career that I broke my hand from the punching. So it's actually sad that I can't train, but I'm also feeling good that I think I'm getting strength. And even at age 32, I feel that there's more room to grow for me. So I'm feeling good.
Yeah, and just mentioning kind of the bulking up and being bigger now, is it kind of crazy to think that you fought at flyweight? Because seeing you and how physically impressive you looked in that fight, it's like, man, how did he do that?
そうですね。USC に戻れるならまたフライでやりたいです。
Yeah, but you know what? I'm telling this now. If I can go back to UFC, I will go back to flyweight.
All right, there we go.
落ちるかな。
Not sure if I can make it, but
Yeah. Leave the door open, right? So, also, Ulka, in that Kenta fight, you were coming back also off the jaw injury, of course. And I remember hearing you also say in that same interview how, maybe there was a little bit of fear about it, at least in training and stuff like that. So I'm curious, in the actual fight, though, did you have any moments where, think you thought about the jaw at all, or were you pretty just focused and it didn't come into mind?
でも、なんか、
Well, when I went into the ring on the fight against Takizawa, I felt like first thing I felt was, oh, I came back. So I got into this mode of fighting mode very quickly, So I was able to concentrate it throughout the fight pretty much. But when I got the hit with the one with his hook, and I think it was on my eye, and for just a moment, I felt like, oh, maybe I'll get injured again. But after that, it was all fine. I was able to, concentrate throughout the fight.
Yeah, and looked good doing so. And you did have the brief scare though, a little bit in the third round with the guillotine, which looked a little tight. But just curious, how deep was it? Were you in any real danger there?
あれ結構ディープだったんですけど、まあ、あれ忘れちゃってください。もうかかんないんで絶対。
Yeah. Well, that was very deep, but let's not even talk about that because I will never get caught in that.
Yeah,
忘れたい。はい。あんなかかんないですもん。
He wants to forget about that.
Yeah, didn't mean to bring up any bad memories, but you got the win, so that's all that matters, right? So,
ありがとうございます。
and I mean that win for you, Oka, it also, kept you undefeated on the RIZIN New Year's Eve shows, and those are very big, special shows, I think, and for you having been able to be a part of them, I'm just curious, in your experience and in your own perspectives, how special would you say, it is getting to compete on those big shows?
まあでも、USC で。
I have to say that I appreciate the fact that I was able to make a comeback on the big New Year's Eve show. However, I fought in a big crowd in the UFC, and so for me, basically, it's saying that's the kind of mode I would like to keep.
Have you noticed a big difference too, like when you fight in RIZIN, like on those big New Year's Eve shows to the UFC? Is it a big difference, or is it pretty similar, as you mentioned right there?
全然違うじゃないですか。
Well, I must say it's actually completely different. Because RIZIN is more like being part of a big honored festival. But UFC is more like a big like athletes. You're there to go as an athlete and compete as an athlete. And it's probably, I'm obviously I've never been to Olympics, but probably Olympics are like that. And that's how I feel. And also to add, I've been to many shows, obviously, Deep Shooto, in Japan, to, Ring of Combat, to, the Bellator and stuff like that. But it's just that UFC, it's just something that's different.
Yeah, it's funny you kind of feel that way about it because recently one of your opponents, past opponents, Manel Cape, who you also beat on New Year's, right? He made the jump from RIZIN to UFC now and hasn't quite looked the same and also dropped to flyweight. I'm just kind of curious of your thoughts on how he's done in the UFC.
いや、まあそうだろうなと思いますね。
Well, I kind of expected that.
もう多分今の現状で多分まあ
Right now, I feel that if anyone from RIZIN will go to the UFC, have a chance for the title shot, and that would be Naoki Inoue, dropping to 125.
Yeah, definitely a very good pick. He's looking incredible right now. But as for you, Oko, did you notice or have any difficulties adjusting to the UFC when you got there for the first time? Going from Shuto, you had all the experience there and everything. Just from fighting into Japan to the UFC, was it difficult adjusting at first?
いや、もう若かったんで。
Back then, I was young, so I was just, all right, let's just do it kind of stuff. But when I look back, it was just totally different from the other promotion. And, I got to fight many top fighters there, obviously. But when I look back, it was just different. And also, I must add that compared to the day when I came into UFC right after Shuto, the UFC now, compared to back then, UFC now is so much better too, in terms of just the quality of fighters. So I wouldn't say it's a scary world, but it's really a real top level competition. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and so when you returned to Japan after being in the UFC, did you feel like
Yes!
a lot better afterwards?
125 そうですね。なんかやっぱ見てきてるんで。
Yeah, actually, yes. All the experience I had in UFC helped me a lot. So I'm not feeling any, uncomfortability or cautiousness, anything like that in RIZIN. And now, right now, I'm up on 145. And I feel like I'm winning in this division as well.
I believe he's got to be the only fighter to have all his wins by rear naked choke. So that's a little accomplishment. Right?
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, not the worst thing to have, but I wanted to ask you too, Ulka. Going in here to ask you why you aren't in the bantamweight tournament, man, because that was a big question that I had when we saw everybody reveal, it's like, oh, we're missing somebody kind of important here. But I'm assuming the broken hand kind of played a part in that.
いやー、そのやっぱり減量
Well, the main reason, actually, the only reason is actually because of the weight. Because after I discussed with my coaches that, I can make it to 135 maybe twice a year, but I need a substantial time to get that done. So for me to cut weight into 135 on June, September, and December, it was just not physically possible, not well for the body. So my decision was pass on that Grand Prix.
Fair enough. Gotta stay safe and healthy rather than put yourself at risk there. But I'm sure you're paying attention to it because it's a lot of great names in there. So just what have you thought of the first round? And do you have any predictions for maybe what the finals will look like? Who will come out on top here?
もうだって直樹じゃないですか。
At this point, I must say only Naoki Inoue. I mean, I just can't think of anybody else who can win that Grand Prix.
Do you think that we'll see him and Kai meet at some point?
もう正直に言っていいんですか？
Well, I'm going to say this honestly. I have to ask you, should I say honestly? But I will. But I think they should be fighting in final because Naoki has a super cardio. There's no way that. And so I would like to see Kai getting chopped down on the semifinal, get tired. Even though Naoki went through the same thing, he will have a huge advantage over Kai in final. And also technically, Naoki is much superior. And in terms of predictions of the fight, Kai's weakness has already been revealed in the fight against Horiguchi. And even the calf kick, he didn't even try to cut it, But Naoki is a long-time kickboxer as well. He knows how to throw a calf kick. He knows how to defend a calf kick. And as a total technique-wise, I think he will just win that fight very easy, is my prediction.
直樹多分1日に10試合できますよ。
I train right now. Naoki can fight 10 fights in one day.
Right.
Cardio, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I hope we do get to see that one either way. I think Naoki has a very bright future, and he's proving that with every fight. But as for you, Ulka, I already mentioned, looking at that September date, hopefully sometime around there for you to return. But do you have anybody in mind? Is there anybody you're kind of targeting?
まあフェザー級でやりたい。
Well, obviously, I'm confident to fight in the featherweight. Therefore, I'm going to fight in featherweight in September. And in terms of the opponent, those 4 fighters fought in Tokyo Dome: Kurebere Koike, Mikuya Sakura, Saito Hotaka, right? Hotaka Saito and Keramov. All those 4 guys, I'm fine with any of those 4. I'm feeling very good, confident about fighting in this division. And I feel like I can beat any of those 4.
All right. Yeah, look forward to seeing it. It was like a little bit of a mini unofficial tournament we had at the last show, right? With all 4 of those guys fighting, and Clever, very impressive guy with his jiu-jitsu. It seems like we're going to see him and Saito next. If that one happens, who would come out as the champ there?
斎藤クレベルか。全然分析してなかったですね。
Well, Saito, Kleber, I haven't had a chance to analyze that matchup.
まあ、そうですね。
It depends on the game plan, I have to say.
Yeah.
斎藤陣営でも作戦立て
Saito's team is very good at coming up with a good game plan. And they have seen Koike finishing, Kleber finishing both fights in triangle. So they know that you're not supposed to step into that setup to begin with. So he's not going to step into that setup. So I think that's going to make everything totally different. So we'll see.
Definitely. It's just a whole lot of fun in the featherweight and bantamweight division. So, whoever you get to face, it's going to surely be a good matchup as well. But I'll leave you with one last thing here, Ulka. Been great getting to talk with you, man. Just in terms of opponents, again, like you fought so many in your career. And is there somebody, though, that kind of stands out as maybe the toughest opponent you've had, or maybe a biggest learning experience as well, or the 2 different things, or the same person, maybe?
その試合か。なんだろうな。
Well, first of all, I have to point out my fight against Wilson Hayes took happen in UFC Brooklyn. So, in terms of the fight, I remember the mostly it's all UFC. And I mentioned this Wilson Hayes fight because I remember I'm landing that knee to the stomach. That obviously hurt him.
Yeah.
なんで膝入ったんだけど勝たなかったんだろうねって話に書いたらって。
いやー、でもフライでももう一回やりてえな。
Well, Drake, I asked him, so how come you didn't win that fight even though you landed the knee shot to the body? He just laughed, and I wish I could fight in flyweight again.
やりてえな
Oh, maybe one day, we'll see what happens. Plenty of time, Ulka. But all right, man. I can leave it off there. Appreciate the time so much. It's great getting to talk with you. Really looking forward to your comeback. Hope the hand heals up, all good the rest of the way here. And yeah, man, just appreciate it so much. Big arigato gozaimashita for taking the time. And yeah, just wish you all the best going forward. Thank you so much.
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。Thank you so much.
Yep. And last but not least, it is the reigning strawweight queen of Pancrase, the kamikaze angel, Emi Fujino. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Emi. It's really, really great to get to talk to you. Hope you're doing well. Just how are things today for you?
今ですか？今全然問題ないです。とても大丈夫です。
Yeah, things are good. I have no issues as of now.
All right, that's great to hear. And I saw you were at the Pancrase event over the weekend. How was that, getting to be there and taking the sights, maybe doing a little bit of scouting? Just how was it?
まあちょっと全部見れてないんですけど。
So I wasn't able to check out the entire event. I was there because there are a few fights in my weight class, in my division. So I was there to check that out. But overall, it was just the same environment, nothing special, nothing new.
Yeah. Do you generally like to kind of go out and check out maybe who some of the other fighters are when you can? Is that something you typically like to do, or is this just one that had more interest for you for one reason or another?
まあパンクラスだと自分
So
の経験が長か
Pancrase,
ったので
to begin with, Pancrase doesn't have my division. So this was the first time I actually went to check out fighters in my weight class in Pancrase. But in general, I do try to check all the fights that are happening in my weight class if I can make it or not. Either way, I'll try to figure out a way to find the fights.
All right, very cool, very cool. And so imagine maybe you're thinking about when you can get back in there yourself now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did you have knee surgery recently? So if so, like how's that recovery been? And if not, then that's fine. But are you thinking to get back in there soon?
膝の手術は
So as far as the knee surgery, I had it done at the
もう
late
普通に練習は
part
ず
of
っ
the
と
year
で
last
きて
year.
います。
So
で
I'm
試
back
合
in the
は
gym,
もう
I'm back
ずっ
training,
とやりたいっていう
and
のは
yeah,
言ってた
I'm
ので、
eager
も
to fight, and I've been telling
チャンスをいただ
I've
け
been
るなら
telling
い
them
つ
that
でもっていう
I
形
want
で
to fight as soon as
まあ体重
possible.
さ
So
え
if there's an opportunity
クリアできれば
and
い
if
つ
the
でも
weight,
できま
if I
す。
can make the weight, I would love to jump in there anytime.
Awesome. And was the surgery kind of just something to, gets taken care of, like after, over time when it gets worse or whatever, or was there something specific that happened to where you're like, all right, I messed my leg up doing whatever?
まあ長年のものですね。な
Yeah,
の
so the
で、
knee surgery
もう
was because of all
完治す
the
るこ
the
と
wear
自
and
体
tear
は
throughout the
難
years
し
of
いの
competition.
で、
And
まあ
I know
もう
for
ちょ
a
っと
fact that
もう
it's
長く
hard
競技をやっ
for
て
me
い
to
る
get
せい
back
で、かな
100%.
り膝が
But
ダ
I
メにな
decided
っ
to
て
do the
しまってい
surgery
るので、ちょっ
to
と直しながらやっ
to
て
deal
い
with
るっ
it
ていう
and cope
感じ
with
で
it.
すね。
And I mean, have you noticed like some good difference now? Does it feel a lot better having had that done? I imagine it's not worse, right?
どうだろ
As a matter of fact, I don't really feel that it's gotten better.
う。こんなすご
It
い
actually
変わ
has
るっていうのはね、
limited my
どちらかというと、
mobility
でき
and
ない
things
こ
that
と
I
の方
can
が増
do.
えてはいるんで、
So I'm not gonna
正
say it's
直、
gotten
ど
any
こまで今
better,
持つかっていうのは
but
すごい自分の中
I'm
で
dealing
ギ
with
リギ
it
リでやっ
and
て
I'm
ます。
learning to work with it.
でもまだ、まあ、ギリギリ
You
ま
never
で試
know
合を
what's
した
gonna
いと
happen,
思っている
so
の
I'm
で、
not sure
やってい
how
る
much
の
longer it's
やっ
gonna
てるっていう
last,
感じ
but
ですね。だからまあ、
I'm
すご
always
い良
ready to
くなるっ
fight
ていうことはちょ
when
っと
there's an
今難
opportunity.
しいと
So
思ってます。
I'm just dealing with it.
Yeah, I guess all you can do, right? Is just kind of adapt to the situation you're dealing with. But Emmy, when you're not involved in combative activities like grappling or fighting, and when you're maybe recovering a little bit, taking some time off, like you were, what are some things that you like to do outside of combat? Because it seems like you have a lot of activities or hobbies that you share with us on social media. So what are some things that you like to do the most outside of competing against other people?
もう趣味が格闘技ですね。
So I consider, my life being around this business or this sport. When you ask me what is my hobby is fighting. And, so anything outside of fighting and my regular day job, it's just I rest and I'm involved in the sport, and I'm working. So it's very hard to say what I do outside on my free time.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of got to get sucked into that life a little bit as you do. But it's funny, I mean, because like for those who follow you on social media, we always see you, hanging out with plenty of the other fighters, could name a whole list, but seems like you've made a lot of friends in the MMA community over your time in the sport. And it's funny, I asked Ayaka Hamasaki the same thing here about how like it doesn't seem like there's ever really been much heat or too many rivalries among the women in Japan throughout most of the history. And she said that she didn't quite agree with that, but from your perspective, having a lot of friends in MMA, how would you kind of what's your perspective on that kind of side of things?
全くライバル関係を作るのは難しく So, when you're in this, when you have been in the sport from the beginning, it's well. To first answer your question. I don't think it's hard to create rivals, and the reason why is that when you're in the sport from the beginning, like just because the lack of talent or the amount of lack of participants in this sport, you become to develop a certain kind of relationship with ones who are in the sport, and it's hard to ignore them when you're in the sport because there's so very few of us, and it's hard not to avoid. It's hard to avoid each other. You're always there. You're always seeing each other. You're always talking. So it's natural for any kind of friendly relationship to develop. And for me, I think that I fight for a job. This is my job, and my job and my personal relationship, I think it's a totally different thing. So for me, being friendly with another female fighter doesn't mean that I don't feel that she's a rival. I don't feel that fighting is not an option. So it's just totally two different things. Just because we're friendly in private doesn't mean that I won't fight them. That's just how I take it. So.
Okay. All right. That's a very fascinating perspective. And, it makes sense. It's a very professional, I would say, of you. But, with all that in mind, Emi, whether out of all the friends and foes that maybe you've made over the years, is there anybody that would kind of stands out as maybe your toughest opponent that you've had? And I know that's a tough question, but does anyone come to mind?
So it's really tough because I think all fights are memorable for me. But if I had to name a few, I mean, obviously the ones I remember are the ones I lost. So my most recent one would be the pancreas title when I fought Viviani Rujo. That was a tough one. And then when I fought Zhang Wei Li in Kunlun, those two fights were absolutely like a one-sided fight. So I would consider those two one of the toughest opponents.
All right. And it's interesting, that you mentioned Wei Li because we know what she's kind of gone on to do since then. And when you kind of face somebody like that, and you mentioned them right now as one of your toughest opponents, can you kind of tell when they're going to go on to do something great and be champions maybe at the highest level? Is it a lot more evident to you having, getting to fight them yourself?
In terms of the Zhang Wei Li fight, there's something I do remember quite clearly, is where I knew that she was practicing her elbows. She was working on her elbows before the fight, and I knew that she was working on them. But at the time, I hadn't faced or like elbow strikes to the face in women's MMA. There wasn't anybody who could utilize them in the fight. And I honestly didn't think that elbows were effective or would come in useful in an MMA fight. And I went in there with that mentality. The first round I was okay, but I took 2 elbows to the face in the second round and lost by a TKO. So just by just experiencing it firsthand, experiencing a female fighter who could utilize elbows during the fight with such efficiency and effectiveness, I knew that she was only going to get better from here. And I do remember that clearly.
For you getting to fight Fuji, you caught her right after, her first loss and her historic run that she went on there. Just what was it like getting to fight Megumi? Because I'm sure at the time, she had her name and everything like that. What was the feeling like going into that fight, and especially after the first loss? Just what do you remember about that moment in your career?
Yeah, so when I fought Fuji, it was a very last minute fight. She was supposed to fight somebody else, and I guess that opponent fell off, and the offer came to me. And at the time, I fought Fuji-san in December, but I also fought in October and November. And I got this very short notice fight against Fuji-san, and everybody around me, team members, everybody around me told me to not take the fight. They didn't want me to fight. Once a month is just way too much, and against the best pound for pound at the time. But for me, I did not want to miss this opportunity to fight the best pound for pound woman in the world. And so obviously I fought her. I went in there with the lack of preparation. But my mindset was I was going to fight as myself. No game plans, but I was just going to bring myself and see how I would be able to hang against the world's best. I just wanted to know how I would perform against the best in the world. And it was just out of curiosity. I obviously I went in there to win. I wasn't going in there to lose. But that fight was, I went in there to test myself out of curiosity, and I enjoyed it. And up until fighting Megumi-san, Fuji-san, I was always scared. I got nervous. I got scared fighting before a fight. But for this fight, for the first time in my career, I was excited about it. I was excited to step in there. I was excited to compete. And ever since that fight, I've learned how to enjoy the time before stepping into the ring or the cage. It's more of I'm very excited about the anticipation on what would happen if I went in there against this tough opponent. So since that fight, my mentality's kind of changed a bit, and that's what I remember.
All right. Well, that's definitely a great story, and very cool that could help bring that to you. And I mean, Megumi, she went on and retired fairly shortly after that, a couple of years after you guys fought. And, here you still are, kicking, and you're the champion still to this day. So would you say that's kind of been the secret for you to fighting at a high level for as long as you have, is, just enjoying it a little bit more, maybe?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's a secret or not, but I definitely do enjoy fighting. I just love what I do, and there's so much to learn. There's still so much to learn. I think this is about not knowing, and every day you realize something, and every day you learn something, and it's a never-ending process. And when you're in this as long as I am, it's there are many other fighters that pop up who you respect and who you want to fight, and see what's going to happen if you fight this certain fighter. So it's just a loop of a never-ending thing, and it's just so hard for me to quit because I enjoy it so much. I can't really figure out when and how I can quit. So with that being said, I think it's amazing that Fuji-san was able to call it. And because right now I am absolutely stuck and I have no idea when I should even quit.
Just gotta go till you can't anymore, right? Do what you love for as long as you can. But I mean, to go back all the way to the beginning, Emi, when you started in MMA, how did you get into it? Were you always into combat sports? And I'm sure maybe you did some other jiu-jitsu or whatever it was before actually doing MMA, but what was it that drew you to combat sports, and just how did you get into them in the first place?
もう最初は本当にフィットネスですね。フィット
Yeah,
ネス
so
と
when
ダ
I
イエッ
first started,
ト
it was just strictly
で、
for just fitness and diet and
ちょうど、
dieting.
まあ、
Um,
友
at the
達
time, you know,
その
Pride
時、
was
まあ、プラ
definitely
イドと
at
か
its
流行って
peak
たんですけ
and
ど、ちょっと格闘技やってみたい
all
フィ
that,
ットネ
but
スで言った時
you
に
know,
紹
I
介され
talked
た
to a
のが
friend to see
最初
if
に
I
入った
can
研修
start,
会
you
っ
know,
てい
moving
う
my
ジム
body, get some
で、
exercise. I was
で、
introduced to
初めて
the
3ヶ月ぐらい
Keishukai,
の頃からですかね、
which
藤井
is
さ
a
んが主
big
催
gym
している女子だけの大会っていうのがあっ
at
て、
the time.
で、
And
これ
when I,
何も
it's about
バック
3
グラウン
months
ド
after I
3ヶ
joined the
月目だっ
gym,
たんで、
I participated
一
in
番
an
本
event,
当に簡単な
all
ルール
women's
ですね。
event
指名
where
もなし、サブミッショ
Fujisan
ンなし
produced,
のポジショニングだけっていう
and
試合に出さ
I
せて
was
も
only
らって、
3 months in, so
で
I
その試合が
participated in the
すごく
novice
楽しく
rules
っ
with
て、
very easy,
そこからちょっと
basic
プロでやりたい
rules,
な、
and
や
I
っぱ
had
試
so
合に
much
出るみ
fun.
た
I
いなっ
enjoyed it a
て
lot,
思うようになっ
and
て、続
that's
け
when I
やっ
had
てい
the
きましたね。
desire to. I wanted to compete more, and maybe become professional and take this to the next level.
All right. So when did you get your nickname? I mean, because I love your nickname. Was what Kamikaze Angel or Special Attack Angel? Which one you correct me on, or maybe it's both. But did that come into play later on in your career, or was that something you got from the jump?
いや、もうスマックガールのデビュー時には、
That nickname or ring name was already
ミドルネームがついてたんで、
made
多分
when I made my
おそら
professional
く
debut.
スマック
I
のアマ
didn't
チュア
choose
で
it. The
7戦ぐら
promoter
いさせ
did.
ていただい
He
てる
he
の
already
で、
had it ready. I think it's
もう本当
because I
に
had
得意
about
の
7 amateur
まあファイ
fights
ト
and
スタイル
smack
が
pro before I
正
made my
面から
professional
ぶつか
debut.
りに行く
I
っ
think the promoter just
てい
saw
う
my
の
style where I would
当
just
時も
go
そう
in
い
there
うスタイ
and
ルだったの
you
で、
know
そこ
and
から多分主催の人がデビューの
just
時
give
に
it all.
特攻天国っていうもう
Just go straight forward,
ミド
right?
ルネームを
So
作ってたので、それが
I think
英訳
that's
さ
where
れ
the
て韓国エン
promoter
ジェルに
got the impression and
変
came
わっ
up
てる
with
と
the
思いま
nickname.
す。
So he already had one ready when I was making my professional debut.
All right. Well, that's pretty cool, and not often that's the case. So and it was a good one too. I think it sticks pretty well. Did you ever hope to have a career more based in the U.S.? Like if you would, let's say, got to a UFC or something like that, Invicta, even, Ayaka Hamasaki, she went on to, win a title there and maybe arguably the most successful Japanese female to ever compete in America. So was that ever something that you wanted to do?
ずっとありましたね。もちろん、
Yeah,
ずっと UFC 出
obviously,
たいっていうのはありましたし、
I did
まあ
have
そ
a
のた
big
めに
desire
イ
of
ンビク
fighting
ター
in
からが
in
一
North
番近
America.
道なのかっていうので、いろい
So,
ろ
obviously
動いていた
the
だい
final
た
goal
こ
would be able to
と
get
も
that
ありま
UFC
したけど、
contract.
まあま
Um,
あ、ね、私の性格と
I
かいろん
had
な
some
要素
people
で、ちょっ
work
ともうそれは叶わない
to
で
try
終
to
わって
make
しま
that
ったんです
happen.
けど、
They tried to build the gateway, or they tried to put down the rails for me to get to the UFC. Obviously, the first the sure step would be fighting in Invicta and getting that belt. But there's just so many aspects that came to it. Maybe it's my record, maybe it's some other things, but it didn't happen. But the desire is still there.
The title win, just like, what did that moment feel like? Because I'm sure, that was obviously a pretty big deal for you, but just, getting that win, how do you reflect on that moment?
あの時の気持ち。まあ、もう嬉しいっていうのが一
Yeah,
番で、
I was very happy,
っ
and
ていうのが大きかったですね。
my sincere emotions would be that I was glad that I continued this far. I'm glad I followed through.
Yeah, I mean, congrats on it again. It was great to see, that happen for somebody like you, who's a true pioneer of the sport. And, we've talked about it a little bit tonight, but, not to put any caps on anything, of course, because you want to go as long as you can. But when that time finally does come, Emmy, when you can't fight anymore or decide to retire, whatever it may be, like, how do you want to be remembered?
このような選手。まずは記憶に
Yeah,
残る
first I want to be a fighter who people remember.
宇治のエミっていう
I
選
want
手が
I
いた
want
って
to
い
be a
う
fighter
の
when
を
people look back, they remember
覚え
Emi
て
Fujino,
もらえるような選手になりたいですね。
and they remember my performance as a
あ
fighter.
とは
And also I do want to become a fighter where people would want to
試合が見たい
stop me from retiring
もっ
because
と
they
試合
want
が
to
見た
see
か
more of
見
me.
たいって思
That's the fighter I
われ
want to
たいです
become
ね。
before I retire.
Yeah, that's a fantastic goal to have. And I think that, you will be one that is remembered because of the great career that you've had and all the amazing fights. But all right, well, that is all I got for you, Emmy. I mean, I could seriously talk to you forever, but I appreciate it so much, you taking the time, to chat and catch up a little bit. Wish you all the best and hope you get back in there soon. I'll definitely be watching and cheering for you to compete for as long as you possibly can and want to. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time. Very big arigato gozaimashita. It was phenomenal. A lot of knowledge. You're like an MMA library. So this was great for me. Thank you so much.
はい、またよろしくお願いします。ありがとうございました。
All right, you guys, here we are again. The end of another episode, which means more community questions. Appreciate those of you who take the time to watch and send them in when we need them. So let's kick things off again with our typical usual suspects, a little bit repeat askers, but appreciate you guys all the same. Starting things off with Mr. Zane Bando. Shout out to him. He's asking, what is the best RIZIN event you've ever seen, and who is a prospect to watch in 2022? So funny enough, Zane, Shingo and I kind of already answered this a little bit on SCMP's YouTube channel when we did our Q&A with John together. And we kind of both came to the conclusion that, at least for me, RIZIN 20 is one of, if not the best MMA events of all time. It is right up there with UFC 199 for me, which, they can go back and forth, but that one, amazing. And RIZIN 20, I think, delivered just spectacularly from the start to finish. A name value, amazing fights, great finishes, had it all. RIZIN 14 also came to mind in terms of RIZIN specifically. Those are probably the top two for me. Of course, we're both New Year's shows. There's a lot to choose from, but we kind of both agreed on RIZIN 20. I think for the most part, right, Shingo? That one was just so good.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember too much of our chat, but yes, I must say that I agree with you.
Absolutely. So there's definitely a good one for anybody looking to get into RIZIN to start with. Obviously a high bar, but hey, you got to start somewhere. So, and then who is a prospect to watch in 2022? Kind of talked about that a little bit already, but that's okay. For me, I was feeling like Kazuma Kuramoto, who, just kind of put on a very competitive fight with Alan Yamaniha. So I guess by default, would jump to Yamaniha, who was somebody to look at anyways. But as for 2022, could maybe break out of that prospect label this year. So as for next year, I don't know. I still feel like it's kind of early to say who will be somebody to watch next year when people can, kind of keep growing in these next 6 months or 5 months here. But I don't know. I'm looking at the bantamweight division specifically, of course. I don't know. I guess the easy person for me is to say Yamaniha, but I'd have to really think about this one a little bit more. It just throws me off because Kuramoto lost now, but very close fight. I don't know. Is there anybody you'd like to mention, Shingo? It's okay if not.
It's tough because, as you mentioned, like we focus more on the story, right? It's not about like pure competition. Well, I mean, it is competition, but we like to focus more on the storytelling aspect of it, and that takes a big factor on how to market these fighters and how these fighters become who they are. So we still have, September, December, probably November, August. We got anywhere from 2 to 4 more events left. And anything can happen. Anybody can rise up and meet their expectations on how the fights go and how they perform. So it's really hard. I guess what to say for RIZIN is that just kind of, I don't know, just follow the story and then just get excited. It's not about like following this specific fighter, but for us, we like to spend time on telling the story and, having the viewers follow us throughout the year. And that's what our Grand Prix is providing this year. I think for next year, we're going to focus on the featherweight division, which means that we're going to have to start introducing new talent in the featherweight division starting this year. So I can't really think of specific names, but if you want to follow the Grand Prix, that's a good start.
Yeah, and I kind of like, you mentioning the story aspect, because if you think about it now, I did mention Kuramoto, but having lost, that helps build stories in a lot of ways. So going forward, he could still be a good choice for 2022. And then even Sudario, who we've talked a lot about being maybe the next big thing at heavyweight, he also just lost, but that kind of helps going forward. in terms of next year, and it's still very early in his career. Another person that jumped out to me when you were saying that was Ai Shimizu, who, you know, lost to Kana. Once she comes back, you know, where will that go from there? So just some people that, in terms of, you know, had some learning experiences recently, I think that's that could lead to some fun directions for them. So some good shouts right there. But that is all Zane had for us today. So appreciate it, sir. Good questions as usual. And then Luke here, our boy Lukewood's words, chiming in again with some good ones as usual. I mean, I'm very, I love everybody's questions, so they're all good. But all right, he starts one off though with question for Shingo. Specifically, with the Tokyo Games going ahead under a 10,000 spectators cap at each venue, do you think the games taking place under these circumstances is a good or bad thing for the fight industry overall?
That's a very tough question. It's kind of political. If I give my opinion, like honest opinion, but well, it's, you know, there as a matter of fact, they're still going back and forth. I know they announced the limit is 10,000, but now we're hearing maybe it's no attendance, right? We still don't know the final confirmation yet. And it's a good thing or bad thing. I mean, overall, I think it's all this crap with the Tokyo Olympics. It's not a good thing overall for anybody. And I'm sure there's reasons why they're doing it, and I'm sure there's reason for everything that happens. There's, you know, when people get involved with, and when money gets involved, there's a lot of reasons. And there's a lot of things that happen that really doesn't quite make sense, but they still do it anyways because there's probably a reason to it. The thing is, though, I really hope that once the Tokyo Olympics are set aside and the government can focus solely on the country's the country's interest, you know, they'll get their shit together and they'll guide us and provide us with a solid, legitimate idea and execute it. We're being optimistic that we will be able to bring in international talent by the end of the year. So
yeah.
Can I keep it there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing is that for us, if the Tokyo Olympics happen, that means that we won't have a venue during the summertime in the Tokyo area. We'll have to travel outside of Tokyo to put on events outside of Tokyo during the summertime. So like Sakakibara-san mentioned during the event in Osaka, we have announced our event for September 19th at the Saitama Super Arena. That is confirmed. But we want to put in we want to put in an event during the summertime, preferably in August. So that all depends on if the Tokyo Olympics are going to happen or not. Right now, it looks like it's going to happen. So we've kind of shifted us looking at venues outside of Tokyo. And if it makes sense to do it, we'll probably do it. If not, we'll wait until September. So yeah, it's a lot of our scheduling has been affected by the Tokyo Olympics. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or bad thing for the fight industry.
Yeah, I mean, it all remains to be determined, right? It's still nothing's concrete. It's still we're still living through the Corona phase a little bit. So
I spent all that time talking about things and I don't have an answer.
It's perspective, my man. So that's good. But what you can maybe have an answer for, even though this question, the next one, is for me specifically, but I do want to hear what you think about it. Luke asks, favorite RIZIN fighter entrants, and then he puts in parentheses, other than Ulka Sasaki, of course, which is funny that he mentions Ulka because Ulka was on this episode, as you guys saw, but he wouldn't have been the first person that jumped to mind. Yes, his last entrance at RIZIN 26 was phenomenal. That was very good. But for me, I mean, I'm going to list multiple here because there's so many to choose from, but like Tension is always a consistent good one. I really, really thought Yuri's entrances were always fantastic. JQ always put on fantastic entrances as well. But number one, the one that I just love so much, was Andy Wynn's last one, like the Michael Jackson one. That was like she had a whole dance routine and everything. I thought that was fantastic. So if I'm gonna pick one all time that I've seen that jumps right to mind, it's probably hers. But most consistent, I mean, I even like Shiratori's this last event as well. I really liked he had, you know, 2 entrances because he won all the way. But yeah, Yuri tension for consistency, but then at one stands alone. I really liked you know, the creations a little bit. But which ones stand out to you, Shingo? I'm curious.
Let me add a little bit on that Andy Wynn entrance. She told me later, like, yeah, I had to practice more in my walkout than my fight. I'm like, dude, no shit.
That's what they said on commentary. I remember Showdown Joe was like,
I'm sure it was a joke, but it was hard to believe that it was a joke. I could totally believe that.
yeah,
We'll get to hear from her the real story.
exactly.
Yeah, but you know, for me, I think it's totally random. But I have my favorite walkout entrance. It's always been my favorite, and it's set. It will not change. But it's Tap Noi, Tiger Muay Thai.
Okay.
Like his walkout entrance is his music, his walkout sound, like the Thailand, that song and his personality, it matches perfectly. And I like how he takes his sweet ass time and he pisses off all the production crew in the back because they're on the intercom like, dude, this guy needs to walk out now. Like we're behind, we're pushing, and he doesn't care. And you know, the way he talks into the camera, like everything, everything about his walkout entrance is, I like it. It's very entertaining. And I think it was when he fought Yusaku Nakamura. He walked down the ramp, ran back up.
Oh yeah.
Again, remember that?
That was hilarious.
I'm sure the producer was like, "What the heck is this guy doing?" So his ability to piss off the production staff, everything else that's shown on camera, I think he's got my vote on that.
I love the additional kind of behind the scenes reasoning for that one, but that is, I forgot about that. That was good. That was definitely very good. So, but essentially a lot to choose from there, Luke. You already knew that, but yes, entrances are very, very fun indeed. So thank you for those ones, sir. And all right, we move on to King Seo 24, dropping in some more for us too. And these are quite good ones. And we actually already answered one of them. So his first one is, what is the schedule looking like for the rest of the year? Pretty much rattled that off already. So don't really need to go into that anymore. Second question. This is a good one. I like this one. He asks, when RIZIN books fighters from other promotions like Nadaka Yoshinori and Kaito, do the fighters' home promotions have say in the matchmaking?
Yes.
All right, there you have it. And 3, what is the status of Takahiro Ashita? We'll just start with him. What is the status of Takahiro Ashita?
He's available.
All right, there you go.
I mean, you know, like I said, I think you know, next year we'll be putting heavy emphasis on the featherweight division. So as I mentioned, we will be seeing more featherweight fighters this year to build the story leading up to next year. We want to build that momentum. And you know, Ashita's been a regular for RIZIN, and I'm sure he'll get the call this year soon. Maybe not.
Yeah, we'll see. And then he also asks, status of Makoto Shinru.
I've heard that he has been extremely busy after moving out of Tokyo, going back to his hometown, and he started his own gym. And I hear that he's been occupied with that activity. He can't really juggle too many things at the same time. So that's the reason why he's been kind of stepping away from the sport lately to focus more on his business end.
All right. And then Tatsuki
Sawamoto, he is also available, but he is a true flyweight, right?
Right.
And it's you know, it's hard to focus on many weight divisions at a time. As much as we want to highlight everybody in each division, you know, there's that certain timeline of when this division is going to shine. especially with Shinju out of the picture for now. I mean, we tried to do the Nakamura versus Kitakata fight, but unfortunately, Kitakata couldn't make it due to health issues, and hopefully, he recovers and gets back soon. But it's the lack of, I would say, the lack of fighters and the lack of demand at the moment for the flyweight division. It kind of makes things hard to put him in the mix, because obviously Sawamoto has already fought Nakamura and Kitakata, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you consider Shinju's out of the picture, maybe Ito, there's quite a few prospects who haven't fought in RIZIN yet in the flyweight division. Once we could get access to those guys, I'm sure it would make the division much more interesting. So we'll see about that. If everything is about timing, and if Sawamoto is a fighter that the fans want to see, if there's a specific fight that the fans are dying to see, if people make enough noise on a specific fighter in a specific fight, we can make it happen. But as of right now, it's just there are other priorities, and there are other weight divisions and fighters to focus on at the moment.
Right. And last but not least, already kind of mentioned the whole featherweight idea there, but this guy, it seems that he said he's getting some U.S. interest, but Kyohei Hagiwara, status on him?
He will always be on one of the top guys on our list, and I think he's just a little butthurt that he didn't get the call for Osaka. But yeah, he's always on the top of the list, and he's an entertaining fighter. Like, he is the type of fighter who will shine depending on the matchup. And yeah, I think we can put some fights on where he can shine the most, I think. But if there's an offer for Hagiwara, international offer, that's great news for him, right?
Yeah. So see what happens, but there we have it, King CO. All three of your questions, appreciated, sir. So that does it for all the questions for this episode. But Shingo, I did want to do one new little thing with you here. So, Japanese phrase of the episode, if you don't mind me throwing it at you. How do we say, "Where can I get some beer" in Japanese? And I'm going to try and repeat it.
Where can I get some beer?
What would be practical?
Well, I'm just going to keep it really simple, right? It's going to be kind of different, but I'm just going to say it. Biiru wa doko desu ka?
Okay. Biiru wa doko
It
desu ka?
doesn't translate, where's the beer?
Yeah. All right. Perfect.
Where's the beer?
Okay. So from
and
my
you can use that with any other situation just by changing the word. Say, where's the toilet? Toire wa doko desu ka? Right.
Okay. All right. So that's like, yeah, because I told you I knew watashi wa doko desu ka. Where am I? So
there you go. Just change it to beer. Like, biiru wa doko desu ka?
There we go.
Where is beer?
Whatever you need, doko desu ka? All right.
There is doko desu ka? That's a good one to remember. It's like, donde está?
Yeah. There you go. All right. So that'll do it, you guys. Episode 9 in the books. Appreciate you checking it out, leaving your questions, viewing, supporting, all that good stuff. Means the world as we get ready for big episode 10. Gonna try and go big for it, as it's pretty much close to 1 year anniversary. Can you believe that, Shingo? Maybe not 1 year anniversary of the show, but 1 year anniversary since we actually did the Megumi story. Did you realize that? That was been a full year now. That was a week ago.
Like it's been like 2 years ago.
I know. So
like it was a long time ago.
Crazy, man. Time flies. It really does. But on that note, you guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and keep it simple. We'll just see you next time.